Anthony thought he was winning when he saw the change in expression. What? Scared? Anthony asked. Of you? Nicholas asked. You're just a bloody clown who is a wannabe villain, Nicholas insulted. Fine. Anthony nodded with a pissed face even though the insult hit him badly. Let's see who has the last laugh then, Anthony said. I wonder what is making you so cocky. Is it the damn shares you have in Infinity Holdings? Nicholas asked, but Anthony didn't seem fazed. I will just buy it 10 times, Nicholas said. As if it was that easy. Anthony chuckled. You should stop now, Nicholas. Amaya came out from behind him as she sniffed. This is more than that. She looked into his eyes, but Nicholas again wasn't ready to give up. What is he talking about? Tell me. I will sort anything out. Nicholas held onto her hand, trying to reassure her. Boss, Cole spoke up as Nicholas shifted his attention to him, seeing him hesitate. He knew that look. Cole would only make that face when he did something wrong. Something really, really wrong. I realized I didn't tell you the full story about the shares, Cole said. Anthony's laughter filled the place, followed by Cole's confession. Nicholas hated this feeling. This feeling of being a bit helpless while Anthony relished the moment. Let me brief you. Anthony stopped laughing and started to speak. Nicholas cast a brief glare at Cole before shifting his gaze to Anthony. Yeah, I do have shares in Infinity Holdings, but those shares can't be sold, Nicholas, Anthony said with a cocky look. Even though Nicholas already had an idea of what he meant, he still let him speak. In summary, my shares in Infinity Holdings can't be sold under any circumstances unless I transfer them willingly. He shrugged with a mocking pout as he narrowed his gaze to Amaya. You know what that means. You can't save your dear Amaya because I will forever own those shares, he said in a cold tone. That's why Amaya will remain my woman if she wants what's best for Infinity Holdings. Anger coursed through Nicholas's veins. This was a big mess. He didn't expect a situation like this. There were people who placed a special clause of never selling their shares to keep it within the family and prevent outsiders from invading. But it mostly occurred in families where they owned shares in the company. He hadn't expected Anthony to make such a big move. What mattered right now was that he was pissed. What he hated most in the world was being threatened by anyone, especially concerning his loved ones. You have really shot yourself in the foot, trying to hurt the ones I love, Anthony. I promise you, you will pay dearly, Nicholas said with a low growl. Don't try to act cute. Even if you have all the money in the world, you won't be able to save Amaya. She can never be yours, not in this life or another. Anthony seemed to be feeling confident at this point. Nicholas. Amaya held Nicholas again, as if she knew her touch was his weakness. He would melt instantly when their bodies touched. Please, let's just stop. Anthony hasn't done anything to me. We were once lovers and... Do you still love him? Nicholas cut her short, leaving her remaining words dangling. She turned back to look at Anthony, who was staring calmly at her like she was his prey, waiting patiently to devour her. Don't look at him, Amaya. Focus on only me. Nicholas turned her head to face him, as Amaya's heartbeat quickened. If you say yes, I will leave you alone and never disturb you again. If it's a no... Nicholas drew in a deep breath and paused, because the events playing out were starting to overwhelm him. I will make him wish he never met you. I just need you to trust that I will take care of things, Nicholas said with the most genuine gaze he could muster, while Amaya seemed like she was caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. She knew just a simple yes would sort everything out. If money had been the problem, she would have been confident that Nicholas could settle it. But this case wasn't something in his favor. They were under Anthony's mercy. Even though it broke her heart to let Nicholas go, she knew this was the only way. She had loved Anthony in the past, but Anthony wasn't the same anymore. And the only man she had shown interest in after Anthony was Nicholas. It was hard for her to fall in love and be trusting, but for some reason, she wanted to try it out with Nicholas. Would she be making the right decision? She exhaled heavily and looked away as she rubbed off the tears that streamed from her eyes at that moment. Nicholas's heart sank, knowing what to expect next. He could have just done what he wanted to do with Anthony at that moment, without caring about Amaya's wants. But he wanted to be sure. He wanted to be sure he was the only thing she cared about. Just give up, Nicholas, she is mine, Anthony said with an annoying kind of confidence. And I am ready to change that, Amaya said, shocking everybody with her response. Nicholas watched in surprise as she focused her attention on a shocked Anthony. I am tired of being your freaking mistress, Anthony, she said again, as a smile crept on Jill's face. This had been his secret wish, the day his boss would finally decide to free herself. For some reason, deep down, he felt they could trust Nicholas. You crazy. You heard the young lady, Anthony. She said she isn't interested anymore, Nicholas said with a mocking smile. And you think it will be that easy? Anthony asked with a threatening smirk. Of course, why not? Nicholas asked with a shrug. A smirk was on his face as he dipped his hand into his jacket pocket and brought out his phone. He dialed a number and placed it on speakerphone as Anthony watched him, still underestimating him. Dear Prime Minister, how are you doing today? Nicholas asked aloud the moment he heard a beep which signaled that the other person had picked up. Dad? Anthony called in surprise. Nicholas? The Prime Minister said, shocked that he suddenly reached out to him. It's fine, Prime Minister. There's no need to panic, Nicholas said, as Amaya and Jill watched, not sure why Nicholas was speaking so informally to the Prime Minister. I just called to inform you of your offspring that's getting on my nerves. Do you mind putting him in his place? Or should I? Nicholas asked with a wicked smile playing on his lips. How dare you speak to my father like that, you piece of shit? Anthony made to lunge at Nicholas when his father's voice sounded from the receiver. Behave yourself, boy. The Prime Minister's voice vibrated from the receiver. Anthony stopped halfway, his eyes widened in shock, a crease forming on his brow as he looked down at the phone, as if he could see his father on the screen. Dad, he called with an unsteady tone. What do you think you're doing? What business do you have with Nicholas Lancaster? The man used that tone Anthony was familiar with, the one he used when he was mad at him. No, I mean, Anthony's voice was now lower as he raised his gaze slowly to meet Nicholas's cool one. Why the hell is he fidgeting? Nicholas should be the one cowering. His fist clenched by his side as he shot Nicholas a deadly glare, realizing what Nicholas was trying to do. His father knew of his affair with Amaya, but let it be as long as he promised the old geezer, it would never affect his political affairs, cause issues in the future. You crazy bastard. He seethed under his breath, making sure his father wouldn't hear. Nicholas only smirked, dipping his other hand into his pocket and making a tired face. Your son is quite unrepentant, Prime Minister, he started while staring at Anthony calmly. He seems to be interested in what I want and won't let go. How do you suggest I deal with that, Prime Minister? Nicholas asked with a mocking tone, knowing full well he was threatening the Prime Minister directly. What? A thing of yours? What's that? Ignore that fool and take whatever you want, the Prime Minister immediately snapped. Dad! Anthony cried out in frustration, not sure why his father, who doted on him, had suddenly turned against him. It almost drove him crazy. What the hell are you dragging with him? The Prime Minister berated angrily as Anthony's eyes widened in shock. This was his reality. A reality he didn't imagine. Why the hell is his father sucking up to Nicholas? And the fact that he couldn't tell his father plainly that they were fighting for Amaya made his face red with anger as he gritted his teeth. I am sorry, Father. You don't need to worry. Everything will be resolved. Anthony knew better than to get on his father's nerves. It was time he gave up. He would find other ways to get Amaya. He still had the shares. He was going to manipulate her in the future. For now, Nicholas had managed to use his father to wait him off. And he didn't plan on staying away for long. Amaya didn't realize she had been holding her breath all this while, till Anthony gave up. Was this how freedom felt? She was more surprised at the way Nicholas turned the tides. What the hell was happening? Great decision, Anthony, Nicholas said, the call still running. But before I forget, Nicholas said with a calm, evil smile, I will need compensation, Nicholas said as everyone's attention stayed on him. What do you mean? At this point, Anthony was already pissed, but he couldn't afford to show it yet. His father could still hear him. Compensation? Sure. Anything you want. I am sure my dumb son must have really ruined your mood, Nicholas, the Prime Minister said. At this point, even a dumb person would know that the Prime Minister was licking Nicholas's ass. Anthony had a horrified look on his face. At this point, he didn't realize when his heart started to beat faster. Compensation for emotional distress, Nicholas said, still putting them in suspense with a small pause before continuing. Your shares at Infinity Holdings. I want it. He said this with a friendly smile as if he had just made a request that was indirectly a blow to Anthony. Amaya and Jill's eyes widened in utter disbelief. Infinity Holdings? The Prime Minister asked, trying to recollect if his son had any shares there. Yes, Nicholas replied. Never, Anthony replied. What do you mean, Anthony? When did you get shares at Infinity Holdings? The Prime Minister asked. Dad, it's a personal thing. I will deal with this. Please just trust me. Anthony tried to say calmly, but his father wasn't having it as he yelled at him. If it wasn't serious, Nicholas wouldn't have called me. Anthony was dumbfounded yet again as his whole body tensed. Nicholas stifled a chuckle while watching the helpless look on Anthony's face. Give him the bloody shares. I don't care if it's the most important thing to you in the world. Hand over the shares without wasting time, the Prime Minister commanded. Dad, I would rather die than let it go. Why the hell are you listening to everything he says without hearing me out first? Anthony let out his frustration without holding back. Nicholas made an I don't care face, knowing that things would never turn in Anthony's favor. There was a long silence from the Prime Minister. One would think something was about to change. If you don't hand over those shares, then I'll kill you with my own hands, the Prime Minister said coldly, as Anthony staggered backward in shock. The words felt like an arrow shot at him as his palms became sweaty. He was the apple of his father's eye, but someone like Nicholas was able to turn him into the biggest villain in his father's eyes. Has he truly messed with the wrong man? Meanwhile, Nicholas wasn't surprised by the Prime Minister's actions. He knew the man cared about nothing but himself. He only pitied poor Anthony. He was going to lose both his cherished shares and Amaya. It would absolutely drive him crazy, and he couldn't wait to see him go nuts when he was done with him. It seems your son is still contemplating, Prime Minister. I would advise you to make a decision fast, or I will just ask for more things for making me wait so long. Nicholas feigned a helpless tone as he spoke again, succeeding in mounting more pressure. Nicholas, please, you can't do this. Don't take the shares away from me, I beg you. Anthony, sensing he could never win this fight, had no choice but to rush and hold his hands, hoping Nicholas would have some pity for him. But wasn't he being delusional at that point? But it is like that when one is on the brink of losing everything. After realizing they are on the verge of ruin, they hold on to that little hope that their predator would let them go. What are you doing, you fool? Nicholas hung up the phone, a disgruntled look on his face as he placed his phone back inside his inner jacket pocket and raised his gaze to meet Anthony's, who seemed confused by his sudden action of hanging up on his father. What's with that look? Aren't you relieved? If I hadn't hung up, your proud father would have to suffer hearing his son beg me like a mere pauper, Nicholas said, every word coming from his mouth with pure relish. Suddenly, Anthony regained his self-awareness. That didn't mean much to him now, not like it could save him. You're right, Anthony said calmly, avoiding Nicholas's gaze and looking downward. Don't pretend to be a saint, Anthony. Face me like a man when I speak to you, Nicholas said in an authoritative tone that unconsciously forced Anthony to raise his head to look at him. He swallowed hard as he tried to maintain eye contact with Nicholas. It felt like his every action at that point would determine the way forward and his future. He had never felt so helpless in life like this before. He had always had the backing of his father, but hearing his father snap at him like that without warning was still hard for him to digest. For your information, I am not going back on my words, Nicholas said with a smile, his look cold and demeaning. If only you had let go when I asked nicely, it wouldn't have warranted me needing compensation, would it? Nicholas placed a hand on his shoulder, as if they were having a normal conversation where he was supposed to answer accordingly. But it was a hypothetical question asked under great duress. You look cute, looking at me like you want to kill me right now. But unfortunately, you wouldn't get that opportunity in this lifetime or even in the next, Nicholas said after a moment of silence, monitoring his expression. Nicholas removed his hand from Anthony's shoulder and stepped back. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock is ticking, Anthony. I wonder what your father would do this time if I give him another call, Nicholas said calmly. Anthony hated how he spoke calmly, but every word held a certain degree of threat that made the hair on the back of his neck stand. Fine, you can have it, Anthony said. Don't say it like you are doing me a favor, or I will make you beg me to have it, you fool, Nicholas hissed. Anthony then realized that Nicholas had so many ways to deal with anybody who crossed him in the future. At that point, he started to make a mental promise to himself not to ever meet Nicholas again in life. I'm sorry. Anthony almost bit his lip as he apologized. Good. Nicholas's stern look changed to a smile. You can leave now. I will have my lawyers meet with yours to finalize it. He walked over to Amaya and placed a hand over her shoulders. She raised her head to look him in the eyes as Nicholas gave her a gentle squeeze. Anthony's blood boiled at this sight. But poor thing, he couldn't do much but watch. He sucked in whatever anger he had. Can you leave already? Your presence seems to be making Amaya uncomfortable, Nicholas said with an irritated look. With a defeated look, Anthony turned around and started walking away when Nicholas called him again. Wait, Nicholas said, and Anthony's whole body froze. What does he want again? He thought aloud, as he turned slowly to find Nicholas smiling sweetly at him. Try not to cross paths with Amaya in the future. In fact, she shouldn't be the one to stay away from you. You should do everything in your power to stay out of her sight. Clear? Nicholas asked with a teasing smile. I didn't hear that, Nicholas said when Anthony didn't respond for a long time. Understood, Anthony said, watching with a satisfied look as Anthony walked away. Even though the man was at least 5 years older than him, Nicholas had managed to punish him like a recalcitrant 5-year-old. Oh my God, what just happened? Amaya immediately asked Nicholas when the four of them were alone again. You're free now. That's what happened. Nicholas drew a still, confused Amaya into his embrace and held her tightly, inhaling her scent. Cole and Jill turned around to give them some privacy. Damn, this felt so good, Nicholas thought, as he held on to her longer than he had anticipated. We haven't even been separated for a year, and you are ready to carry other women? Tiffany walked into the hall, her voice reverberating through the whole area. The first thought that came to Nicholas's mind was how Tiffany found him here. Nicholas let go of Amaya slowly, even though he had not appreciated the disruption. Tiffany was looking like a wildcat that had been let loose as she diverted her glare to Amaya, who Nicholas had held close. What are you doing here? Nicholas's tone bore malice and impatience as he spoke. Tiffany scoffed as she dragged her gaze off Amaya and back to Nicholas, walking slowly toward them. She stopped when she was just a few feet away from them. I am pregnant with your child, Nicholas, Tiffany said, and Nicholas felt like he had just heard the biggest joke of the century, while the others were dumbfounded. What was that? Nicholas asked with a slight chuckle. You heard me. Don't try to play dumb. I have conceived your child, she repeated confidently. Nicholas couldn't help but wonder what gave Tiffany this kind of courage to lie to his face, especially after seeing what he had done to people who had tried to mess with him in the past. Even she was a testament to those things he had done. Nicholas, what is she talking about? Amaya asked, cutting into Nicholas's swirling thoughts. Nicholas diverted his gaze to find a worried look on Amaya's face. It was hard to believe that this was the fearless woman he had met for the first time. Now she looked like a 5-year-old who was scared that her favorite candy would be taken away from her. Darn it, he hated to see her worried. All of this was happening because of Tiffany. He had already sworn inwardly he was going to teach Tiffany a lesson.